There was a bed in the room, but the little girl did not lie on it. She thought she was not worthy. She curled up on the floor instead and slept soundly because the floor here was soft. It was the first time in her life she had been treated this way. Before this, all she had was the cold, damp stone of a prison cell. She should have been the young lady of a duchy, standing above 10,000 people. Instead, from the age of 3, she had lived in a cell. The only lesson she was ever taught was how to endure pain, because only if she could endure it would her screams, while they drained the divine power from her body, fail to spoil anyone's mood. By the time she turned 18, the power inside her had run dry. She thought she was finally about to be free, but they still wanted to wring out the last drop of her worth. They offered her up to the Holy Spirit as a sacrifice. Dying is fine too, she had thought. But then she was reborn. The little girl crawled trembling under the bed. She did not understand why she had to live through all of it a second time. Still, this life came with a little mercy. She got to see the mother who had died so young. She threw herself into her mother's arms and sobbed. But the beautiful dream shattered once more. The knights who were supposed to protect commoners broke into her home. They dragged her away in the cruelest manner possible. She knew there was boundless divine power inside her, but no one had ever taught her how to use it. Just as she was quietly weeping and accepting her fate, someone finally came to save her. It was only that her heart had long since turned to wasteland. Her small body pressed itself into one corner of the carriage. She did not dare look out the window. The carriage stopped before the gates of the ducal estate. Barefoot, she climbed slowly down to the ground. For the first time in so long, she saw the sun again. And yet her whole body shook with fear. A strange man stepped up in front of her. By instinct, she shrank back. Then she noticed that he had golden cat eyes, exactly like the cloth cat her mother had left her. The magnificent estate was, in her eyes, simply another prison. The grand room gave her no sense of belonging. She curled into a corner again, shivering, until a maid came in. She thought the days of pain were about to begin again. But when she looked up, all she saw was warm, soft bread. She hesitated. This did not look like a tool for beating people. When the maid told her it was food, tears gathered at the corner of the mouth of a child who had not eaten in days. She snatched one up and tried to stuff it straight into her mouth. But her hand knocked against a water glass. The glass fell to the floor and shattered. She froze. From her experience since the age of 3 in that cell, if you did something wrong, you knelt and begged. That way you took fewer blows. The maid stood stunned. She did not dare imagine how the young lady had lived until now. She quickly took hold of the small hands pressed together in pleading. "My lady, if you do that, your wounds will open again." But it only deepened the child's misunderstanding. She begged harder. "Please don't hit me. I won't do it again." The maid's chest tightened. Only 5 years old, and already so practiced at begging. "If only I could bear the pain in your place, my lady." Her tears fell onto the back of the child's hand. "It's all right, my lady. Anyone can knock over a glass by accident." "That isn't a sin. No one here will ever hit you again." The child sat frozen. It was the first time she had done something wrong and not been struck. The maid sent at once for a physician. He treated the countless wounds, large and small, that covered her body. But skin can heal. The wounds inside a person are never so simple. No matter how devotedly the whole estate served her, only someone truly her own blood could open that child's heart. The Duke understood this. The mother of his youngest was the only woman he had ever loved. That alone was enough to make him love the child to the marrow of his bones. But that love also shamed him. Why had he not rescued her sooner? For the first time, he felt powerless, and he swore that from now on he would love her twice as much. Mealtime came again. The maid carefully arranged the food in front of the child. Afraid that she would panic about breaking a glass again, the maid thoughtfully set the dishes right on the floor. But the child was still uneasy. She was sure all of this was a dream, until her hand touched real bread, until a mouthful of sweet, tart strawberry juice went down her throat. And the maid in front of her never once struck or scolded her. The maid always smiled at her, warm as a little sun. Even so, she still curled into her corner, watching people through her long fringe. Night came, and still no one arrived to beat her. Something like hope rose in her chest. Will I get to live here forever? They gave me good bread and sweet tart juice. But the sound of the door opening sent her bolting upright like a startled bird. She sat straight up, thinking bitterly, of course, the beautiful dream is over. Trembling, she asked, "Have you come to take me to be drained?" Then she prostrated herself on the floor, surrendering. I'll be good. I want to live here. I don't want to go back to the cell. The Duke's heart twisted. He called the child's name. Then he knelt on one knee. She forgot to beg, staring blankly into his eyes. He had cat eyes too. Don't be afraid. I will not torment you. I will not take your power, and I will never do anything to harm you. So you don't need to beg me. I will never send you back to that cell. This is your home. No one may hurt you here. Here I will give you happiness. Sorrow flickered in the man's golden cat eyes. You may not believe it yet, but I love you very much. The child's eyes went wide. He loves me? How strange. Only a mother and father love someone. But she did not know that this man was not the only one who loved her. At that very moment, two figures were stepping down from a carriage at the gate. Hearing the steward say their sister had come home, both their eyes lit up. Did she come back with mother? The steward sighed. The lady passed away 2 years ago. The young lady was taken that same time. She was tormented for 2 full years before she came home. The twins stared. Their mother had sacrificed herself and wiped out the demon beasts, buying the peace the world lived in now. And in return, people had abducted her daughter and drained the divine power the child inherited from her. The twins clenched their fists. They swore to hunt those wretches down to the last. Elsewhere, the maid brought in another warm meal. The child sniffed at it cautiously, then began to devour it. But at the sound of a knock, she dropped the most precious thing she owned and curled into a ball. No one is taking you anywhere. Then the maid went out and gave the steward a tongue lashing. From now on, no one comes near while the young lady is eating. She thought you'd come to drain her power, and she stopped halfway through her meal. The steward accepted the blame with guilt. Then he explained why he had come. These are gifts from the young master and the young lady for their sister. Back in the room, the maid found the child sitting perfectly still, her stomach growling, not daring to touch the bread she loved most. The maid hurried to bring out the gifts. Look at this, my lady. The child's eyes lit up at once. The cloth cat her mother had made. She crawled forward to see it better. The maid handed it over. My lady, you actually have an older brother and an older sister. The child looked lost. The maid said gently, different mothers, but all 3 of you are the Duke's children, so they are your true siblings. The child tilted her head. So father has another mother? No, no. The Duke and that lady parted ways a very long time ago. Your mother came into his life much later. And these 2 cats. Your mother made those for your brother and sister as well. Lady Roger was hopeless with a needle, but she still sat down patiently and made each of them a toy. The child stared blankly at the 2 cats. Her mother had made her one too. It had only been left behind in the house where she was taken. She still remembered how much it had hurt to lose it. Looking into the doll's cat eyes, she thought without meaning to of her father. He had a pair of beautiful cat eyes just like these. The maid said softly, From today, you are the little sister that Lady Bale and Master Roan hold dear. She did not quite understand, but if her mother had made cats for them too, then perhaps her brother and sister were not bad people. She hugged the 2 battered cats and smiled, the smile of a child who had just found shelter. But this could not go on forever. The next day, the Duke summoned the most renowned physician in the empire. This one had her own rule. She did not treat nobles and paid out of her own pocket to build hospitals for the poor. Only a physician that kind could walk into the heart of his daughter, a heart full of holes. The physician refused outright. Her assistant broke into a cold sweat. How dare she speak to a duke that way? But he did not mind. See the patient yourself first, then decide. But when she saw the child curled in the corner of the room, she was instantly ashamed of her own arrogance. This child was in a terrible state. Her hand tightened around her medical case. She stepped forward to introduce herself and got another flinch in return. The child feared strangers. She said gently, My name is very long, so just call me Eve. That makes our nicknames exactly the same. You're called Eve, too, aren't you? The familiar name made the child think of her mother. Then may I call you Eve? The child stirred a little. She nodded. The physician's smile widened. Our nicknames are the same. How wonderful. It makes me feel that someone loves me, too. She was borrowing her own feelings to tell the child something. Being loved is a happy thing. Sure enough, the child asked timidly, "Being loved, what is that?" "It's like the way your mother loved you." She thought the door had opened a crack. Then the child held out her hand. "You can take my power. I have my kittens now, so I can bear the pain." The physician answered patiently, "I will not take your power. Tomorrow, the day after that, I will never take it. Don't look at me so puzzled, because I don't need your power." The child's mouth fell open. "But everyone wants my power." Without exception, the physician asked her back, "Did Eve's mother take Eve's power too?" The child shook her head hard. The physician smiled. "I am like Eve's mother. I don't need Eve's power. I will love you the way your mother loved you." "So shall we play together today?" The child froze. Everyone looked down at her. Only this physician was willing to look up at her. She let down her guard and nodded. The maid smiled quietly nearby. When the session ended, the physician let out a long breath. The child was not only smaller and thinner than others her age, her body was covered in wounds and bruises. Even a street orphan could not have been abused this badly. Even a woman as even-tempered as she was swore aloud. Thinking of her arrogance earlier, she felt she deserved to be damned. But the urgent thing now was to pack and move into the ducal estate. Before leaving, she had one very important thing to tell the Duke. When he heard it, the Duke hurried to his daughter's room. The door had barely opened when the child asked softly, "Have you come to take my power?" His heart bled. The physician had been right. The child still did not know he was her father. The physician had warned him, simply saying that no one would drain her was useless. What mattered now was to make the child believe they would never harm her, not merely to comfort her. He looked at the child before him. "Ivana, I promise you, from now on, no one can take your power or hurt you. I will protect you." But the child nearly broke. People had promised that before, too. She clutched the two cloth cats. Then the Duke remembered the physician's words. The child loved hearing about her mother. He said patiently, "This room used to be your mother's room." Sure enough, Ivana shot to her feet, curiosity written all over her face. "Your mother loved looking out at the view from this window. I hope you will always live in the room where your mother lived." The child asked blankly, "Why?" She looked up, her clear eyes fixed on him. "Because you are my daughter." She did not understand what a daughter was, but she understood the feeling behind it, so she nodded and agreed to live in this room. He smiled too. "You may use anything in this room however you like, because all of it belonged to your mother." The child paused. "Would you like to try sleeping on the bed tonight?" That question drew her out of the corner. She wanted to touch the bed her mother had slept in. But she was far too small, and climbing up was a struggle. Her face went red with the effort. The Duke stepped forward to help. The child shook violently at once. Every accidental touch dragged her back into the past. She was too frightened to move. But just then she saw a ring on her father's hand, exactly like her mother's. Suddenly she wanted a closer look. She walked over on her own and touched his hand. She said her mother had worn that ring every day, so touching it held her mother's warmth. So warm. The Duke's eyes went wide, so she had not forgotten his promise. He lifted her and set her on the bed. He had barely turned when she caught his sleeve. "Are you leaving again?" He smiled. "Don't worry, I will always be beside you." She stared blankly at that smile. He smiled again. The people who drained her power had terrifying smiles. But her father's smile was beautiful. She held his large hand and closed her eyes, and slipped into a sweet dream. When she opened her eyes, the day had already broken. She sat up, hair tangled like a bird's nest, then flopped back down. She could not bear to leave this warm, sweet-smelling blanket. Then she remembered her father's large, warm hand. She wanted to feel that warmth just once more. Speak of the devil. Her father was already at the door with breakfast. He opened it just as she was waking. He meant to lift her down from the bed himself. But a second later, she had already landed neatly on her feet. Battered as she was, she refused to be a little bird, nestled in her father's arms. The smooth string of movements left the grown man stunned. The child patted the floor with great authority. Her father understood immediately. He set breakfast down at once. Eve had a strawberry in each hand. She chewed with great seriousness. The Duke was moved by how full of life she looked. He had not expected so much to fit in such a small mouth. 3 strawberries were left on the plate. He speared one and offered it gently to her lips. She took it without a shred of ceremony. He nearly wept. He had meant to teach her to use a fork, but seeing how happily she ate, his heart simply softened. Now he understood why people loved feeding their children. He remembered the psychologist's words. Parents come to know their children through the days they live alongside them. He wanted to do better for her. He swore to the little one buried in her plate of strawberries, "I will try even harder for you." The child did not know what that meant, and only tilted her head at him. Meanwhile, the news that the Duke had fed his daughter breakfast with his own hands had already spread through the entire estate. The twins were outraged. "Isn't she afraid of contact with grown men? We want to see her too." The psychologist came in. "Your sister was tormented by a great many people, so she is terrified of people. What if she is afraid of you two?" The older sister asked back, "But we have memories of being beaten too." Something dawned on the physician. These two had also been abused by their own mother. It was why the Duke and his former wife had divorced. Letting the young lady meet ordinary children might backfire, but these 3 shared the same past. Perhaps they could win Eve's trust. The twins crept up to the door of their sister's bedroom. Looking at the sister they had never met, both ached. She was so small. "We were never that thin at her age." Then they began cursing the people who had hurt her, and then Ivana spotted them. 2 large cat eyes turned their way. The twins greeted her awkwardly. They introduced themselves as her brother and sister. Holding her 2 cats, the child did not know what to do. These 2 looked exactly alike. The older sister spoke carefully. "Do you like the kittens? Your mother sewed them herself. They are the toys we treasure most." The words "treasure most" made Ivana tense up at once. She dropped the dolls and threw herself flat on the floor, apologizing without stopping. "Forgive me. I really didn't steal them. I was wrong. Please don't send me to prison." The 2 stared. That their sister could beg so fluently broke their hearts. They too had been abused by their birth mother, but no matter how they were beaten or scolded, they had never knelt and begged. Their sister, only 5 years old, already understood that dignity must be traded for survival. They quickly lowered themselves. "It's our fault. We never accused you of taking anything. We were just happy to see you holding the cats we gave you." The child did not know what happy meant. She repeated the word several times. The 2 picked the cats up off the floor and smiled. "You are the sister we waited a very long time for. We were so glad to have you. That's why we sent gifts." Their gentleness made the child let down her guard. She hugged the cat she had lost and won back. Cheeks flushed and mumbled her thanks. Eve was like a prickly little cat. A moment ago she would not come close, and now she was showing her belly. The 2 melted instantly. The child asked, puzzled, "But why were you waiting for me?" They smiled. "Because you're our family now." When the physician arrived, the 3 children were already sitting shoulder to shoulder. Told to leave, the 2 could not bear to part with her. The physician smiled. "Shall I go and inform His Grace?" The 2 fled like mice spotting a cat. Before going, they remembered to say, "We'll come back, all right?" The physician was glad for Eve. "It seems they like you very much." "Do you like them too?" The child hugged her doll and did not answer, but her burning red face said everything. The physician crouched down and carefully examined her hand. Wounds this severe would have made a grown man cry out, yet a 5-year-old felt nothing, which meant the pain of having her power torn out was greater than all of these wounds combined. Her voice caught. Setting down her forceps, she said to Eve, word by word, "That will never happen to you again. We will protect you." Seeing the child did not know what protect meant, she explained very seriously, "Your father, your brother, your sister, myself, and everyone in this estate will protect you the way your mother did. We will never let anyone hurt you again." Eve looked lost, but she remembered what her brother and sister had said. "Because we're family?" The physician felt that all those days of effort had not been wasted. She nearly burst into tears. "The power inside you belongs only to you. Only you may decide what to do with it. This was nothing like what That wicked man had told her. He had said her only worth was to hand out power to others. After the physician left, Ivana stared blankly at her own hands. My power. That night the child dreamed of a ring of light. The familiar warmth made her think of her mother. She drifted off. Her father watched her smile in her sleep and softened. This is the first time I have seen you smile. He stroked her small head gently. You are like your mother. You have the same stubborn will to live. Softly, he lifted her onto the bed, then sat at the bedside watching her all night. The next morning, Eve woke to her father's voice. Did you sleep well? Are you hungry? Eve nodded honestly, and her father produced, as if by magic, the bread and strawberries she loved most, food waiting when she woke, and she could even eat it in bed. Eve thought she was so lucky, but watching her, he sensed something was off. Doesn't your hand hurt? Busy eating, she shook her head. It doesn't hurt, he said, aching. Is that why you took the bandages off? Eve apologized on reflex. Swallowing the pain in his chest, he said, If you don't like something, just tell me. I won't be angry. Everyone has things they dislike. Eve half understood. For the first time, she said what she truly felt. It just felt uncomfortable. The Duke was often wounded himself. He knew that feeling. But he explained patiently. If you don't bandage it, the wound heals slower, and it can hurt more and more. Eve thought that was strange. But she never felt any pain at all. He frowned and lifted her tiny hand in both of his. The truth is, there is not a single wound on you that doesn't hurt. It's only that the old pain was so terrible that you can no longer feel it. Then he bent and kissed the back of her hand. Don't worry, I will always be beside you. I won't let you be hurt again. The pain will disappear one day, and if you share it with someone, it disappears faster. Eve thought that was very strange. A moment ago, it hadn't hurt, and now it stung in waves. After hearing her father say he would carry the wound and the pain with her, her heart itched as though something had taken a bite out of it. She reached up and touched his face. Will you stay with me? He smiled. I will. As long as you need me. Eve felt the wound stop hurting. Her father must have carried the pain away. After a while, surrounded by the love of the whole household, she stopped flinching like a startled bird. The physician thought that before long they could try physical contact or a bath. The child now explored the world on her own initiative. By biting a ball, for instance. What is this? It doesn't taste good at all. The physician beside her fought to keep a straight face. How could anyone be this adorable? Then she turned and, hand over hand, taught Ivana how to play with a ball. The little one tried it alone, and the ball refused to obey her. Could a ball be alive? The physician rallied. Then let's catch it together. The two of them wrestled with it for half a morning. In the end, the physician collapsed. My lady, let me rest a moment. The child sat obediently beside her. Doctor, what does the world outside look like? If you're curious, my lady, would you like to go out and see? The world is gray, isn't it? That's how the world looks to me. The physician went still. The Duke needed to hear this. What is it? I would like to ask you about the child's mother. His face darkened at once. The two sat down facing each other. What do you want to ask? Can the Great Spirit foresee the future? Foresight is the province of gods. Her mother may have been the Great Spirit, but she was not a god. The physician looked deeply troubled. And what if her mother deliberately kept it from you? He froze, then anger burst out of him. If she could see the future, why let Eve suffer all of that? The physician hurried to explain. The young lady told me just now how the world looks to her. Not only gray, but the whole world covered in demon beasts. But all of that happened a very long time ago. The Duke still did not believe it. Perhaps the people who coveted her power had told her so. She wanted to say more, but he cut her off. He still would not believe that her mother could stand by and watch her daughter suffer. Then he asked about the child's condition. Hearing she now played like an ordinary child, he broke into a relieved smile. Just now he did not want to think about her mother again. He only wanted to be a good father. Elsewhere, the child had no idea what had just happened. Luckily, she was playing with her brother and sister. Quick, catch it, it's getting away. Then let's teach it a lesson. Eve was deadly serious, treating their words as a military order. With a stern face, she caught the ball, then announced her victory aloud as though she had captured a criminal. The two were lavish with their praise. After a whole afternoon of play, the older pair realized their stamina was worse than their little sister's. The three sprawled on the ground to rest. The older sister suddenly suggested, "Let's play in the water this time." Eve had been home a long while, and her hair and body were still dusty. But afraid of touching her wounds, no one had dared bathe her properly. The sister judged the moment was right and offered, "We'll fill the big tub with lots of water and play in it together." Eve remembered being set in a wooden barrel by her mother as a baby. It was probably much the same. So she agreed. The sister rang the bell excitedly and told the maids to prepare the bath. Hearing the order, the maid was deeply moved. At last the young lady would bathe. She led Eve to the bathroom, but the moment the child saw what was inside, her pupils dilated, her eyes filled with despair and the pain of betrayal. She dropped to the floor, shaking. No one understood why she had broken down. Everyone stepped forward in alarm, but Eve dodged aside. "You're all liars, so this is where you hid it. Didn't you say you didn't need my power?" Tears of anguish fell. "This was never my mother's room. Was it here that you drained my mother's power?" She pointed at the white tub in the middle of the room and screamed, "You tortured my mother on that altar, didn't you?" Only now did the twins understand. It was the marble tub. Altars prepared for the gods are always white. So their sister had mistaken a marble bathtub for an altar. 100 precautions, and one thing missed. Eve could no longer hear a word. She knelt on the floor, curled tight, refusing every explanation. "You said no one would ever take my power. You said you would protect me. It hurts." Even her old wounds began to ache again. The older sister watched and wept. Why couldn't I have thought it through? Hearing her scream, her father burst into the room. He held his daughter tight, gripping her hands and soothing her without pause. "Eve, wake up." But she heard nothing now. Tears of despair fell as she murmured, "If you want the power, why did you have to deceive my heart? Take it if you want it. I beg you, end all of this cruelty now." He did not know how to answer. It was not as though he felt no pain. Those who had hurt his daughter, he would hunt to the ends of the earth and repay them 10-fold, 100-fold. The gentle man turned suddenly savage. Restraining himself as best he could, he ordered the maid and his eldest daughter to explain everything. Once he understood, he held his youngest and shouted, dragging her out of her grief, look carefully. Look straight ahead." He gripped her shoulders and forced her to face the thing she feared most. Then he drew his sword and with a single ringing blow cut the tub in two. Then reduced the whole block of marble to rubble. The noise startled the weeping Eve into silence. She sat there staring at her father. The tall man declared in a low voice, "You see, I have destroyed the altar. The thing that tormented you was only ever this." Then he spoke gently. "Eve, you are entirely capable of destroying it too." Eve looked up, disbelieving. "Can I really destroy it?" He was certain. "Of course, your mother and I both could. And so can you." Eve repeated it over and over. "Can I really do it?" The fear that had bound her through 2 whole lifetimes. He softened his voice further. "I promise you, until the day you can shatter that altar with your own strength, I will teach you everything I know of the sword. So don't be afraid." At last, Eve stepped out of the fog inside her. She clung to her father, calling him over and over. He wept, but they were tears of relief. With the misunderstanding cleared, Eve finally agreed to bathe. The pink bubbles were something entirely new to her. The maid thought she was adorable and still remembered to warn her, "Soap stings if it gets in your eyes, so keep them closed, my lady." Once she was clean, the child's hair returned to what it had been. She was still a little shy and hid behind the maid. Her father looked at his clean daughter and his mouth fell open. She looked so much like her mother. He could not help stroking her head. "Perhaps you might try drying the young lady's hair, Your Grace." He was slightly startled. The child looked bashful too. Only the maid stood there smiling to herself. He sat down. The child understood and took his hand. He led her along. He meant to seat her in the chair, but he saw the fear in her eyes and offered to lift her up himself. He added carefully, "If you don't like it, just say so." Warmth spread through Eve. Why did father understand before I even spoke? Swallowing her fear, she sat in the chair and said, I'm afraid I'll fall off. He did not call her a coward. He lifted her thoughtfully instead. Then if I hold you, you won't fall. Eve looked at him, moved. Aren't I heavy? He used to hold her mother the very same way. He told her not to worry. Eve looked at herself in the mirror. Her hollow cheeks had begun to fill out. She noticed her father's hair was a different color from hers, the color of night, and a pair of strange cat eyes. She stared so long that he misread it. Is something wrong? Eve shook her head hard. No, I just think your eyes are as pretty as a kitten's, exactly like the doll my mother sewed for me. He looked at the clumsily stitched doll and thought, perhaps she had foreseen this day, and that was why she made those cats. Hot tears slid down before he noticed. When night came, Eve fell asleep and the Duke returned to his room. The guard who never left his side could not help remarking, the young lady is the image of her mother. It's astonishing. He curled his lip. Eve is her daughter. Is that not perfectly natural? But you carry imperial blood, my lord, and it isn't easily diluted. The twins didn't inherit the slit pupils, but they still have black hair. And golden eyes. What the guard did not dare say was, why did Eve carry none of her father's imperial traits? The Duke knew exactly what he meant. His face darkened. Because Roger carried the power of the Great Spirit within her. As a fragment of a god, she was strong enough to swallow an imperial bloodline whole. So Eve inherited everything from her mother. He stroked his chin, thinking, if it occurred to you, others will suspect it too, and some will covet the divine power in Eve. You must stay at that child's side at all times. Not a single slip. Then he went to Eve's room again, laid a hand on her sleeping forehead, and swore silently, whatever happens, I will protect you. At last the child agreed to a full examination. But her condition was worse than the physician had imagined. Not only were the wounds everywhere, there were multiple fractures in her body, and she had never once cried out in pain, as though those injuries had been with her for longer than anyone knew. She could barely contain her fury. She could not imagine what those animals had done to the child. They deserved to feel the very same pain. Stepping out of Eve's room, she met the child's brother and sister. The twins hung their heads like children who had done wrong, and asked quietly how their sister was. Does she still hurt? Is she still miserable? The physician guessed at once. The two still believed Eve's breakdown yesterday was their fault. But how they cherished their sister, the whole estate could see. She told them their sister was much more stable, and that yesterday had nothing to do with either of them. As long as there is a marble bathtub in this house, it was bound to happen once. The sister still blamed herself. But if I hadn't suggested playing in the water, the physician cut her off. It is better that it happened now. If it had come in the middle of treatment, even His Grace might not have been able to reach her. It broke early, so it could be settled quickly. The twins asked again cautiously. She answered with complete sincerity. I never lie about such things, and His Grace did not place me at the young lady's side for nothing. She did not want the three siblings to drift apart. From beginning to end, the young lady has never blamed you. The brother pressed his lips together. She endured a great deal of pain, didn't she? The physician admitted it. More than we can imagine, which is why we must give her all the more love, so she forgets it sooner. Go in, both of you. The love between siblings is something only you two can give her. The twins gathered their courage, gripped each other's hands, and walked in. Their expressions were cast from the exact same mold. Our sister. It really is our sister. Eve looked so adorable clean that they nearly did not recognize her. The little one tilted her head. Are we not playing ball today? The physician had been right. Their sister had never blamed them. At last, the weight lifted off both of them. The three tangled together in play again. When their father brought in dinner, Eve's liveliness made him smile despite himself. Then, using the excuse that no one should disturb her meal, he drove out the twins who had monopolized his youngest. Before leaving, they patted her head. From now on, we'll play with you every day. Their father brought out a small table. Eve, come and eat. If you set the plate on the floor, your neck and back will ache. It's easier at a table. Looking at the plate of meat sauce pasta before her, Eve was baffled. What is this? Isn't red for strawberries? her father explained at length, then fed her a bite himself. It smelled wonderful. Eve gulped. It really was delicious. Then a mouthful of her favorite strawberry juice. So good. Her father handed her a macaron next. She had never tasted anything so wonderful. 3 bites and it was gone. He said gently, "All of it is yours. Don't rush. Take your time." Eve looked at the macaron in her hand. "I can eat slowly and father won't be angry, because this was made for me and no one else." While the family sat in this warmth, a man was reading Eve's file and sighing. "So our Eve has been through all of that. Have the steward prepare a carriage. I am going to the ducal estate now." The 2 beside him froze. "Your Majesty, you mustn't." "You know I am your emperor and you still defy my orders?" This emperor, far away in the capital, thought constantly of his little niece. His heart had long since flown to the duke's lands, but the moment he left, countless eyes would follow him. And his niece's whereabouts still had to be hidden. As emperor, all he could do was learn through letters what his niece had done today and whether she had grown any taller. Then the uncle emperor thought of a solution. If the man cannot go, let the gifts go. "Prepare 1,314 carriages of gifts for my niece." His aide reminded him, "And the budget, your Majesty?" "There is no budget. If it isn't enough, open the treasury." The commander of the guard went pale. "Your Majesty has only just ascended. The treasury is hardly overflowing." But the aide beside him was already enthusiastically recommending gifts. Watching 2 grown men behave like children, the commander could only shake his head. Compared with what the little girl had endured, what did any of this matter? And how was Eve now? Eating well and sleeping soundly in her father's house? And with steady treatment, her condition was far better than the day she arrived. Even the physician had to praise her. "You are a very hard-working little girl." Eve was delighted. She leapt down from the bed and stuck the landing perfectly, a flicker of pride on her face. The physician applauded enthusiastically. But inside she was full of worry. How were they to correct the child's displaced bones and pelvis? Break them and reset them? What a headache. There was nothing for it but to consult the Duke. Speak of the devil. He pushed open the door. "Is the treatment finished?" She nodded. The little one beside her stole glances at her father without daring to speak. The physician understood at once. She looked exactly like a puppy waiting to be patted. And Eve went boldly on the offensive. She called out to her father and spread her arms wide. He understood, lifted her up, and patiently asked what had happened today. He had also brought her favorite snacks. The physician did not want to intrude on father and daughter, and quietly withdrew. He picked up a fork and fed his daughter. Just then came a knock at the door. Seeing Eve tense, he soothed her at once. "Don't be afraid. It's your brother and sister." Once admitted, the twins launched into an indignant accusation. "Heavens, so it's true. Father, how could you hide it from us and have snack time alone with Ivana?" He cut them off, thoroughly deflated. The 2 then openly discussed how to dig him a pit, right in front of the crafty man himself. Very quickly, each of them brought in a plate of snacks. A family ought to be together. "Let's all eat together." The brother, afraid she would refuse, resorted to wheedling and pressed a biscuit into her hand. Feeling their goodwill, Eve agreed of her own accord. It was the first time the 4 of them had sat down together. But something still gnawed at their father, especially when the knocking started again, and he could not help muttering, "Why are there so many nuisances today?" The steward entered with great respect. A letter from the emperor had arrived. No wonder he was in such a hurry. No one expected that at the words "the emperor," Eve would call his name with easy familiarity. And his middle name at that, the one only intimates used. The room went silent. Their father alone turned jealous. "Doesn't my daughter know nothing about this world? How does she know the emperor's name?" In truth, Eve did not know Gerald was the emperor. In her memory, that uncle was only a friend of her mother's, who had visited her when she was small. Her father was not entirely convinced. He asked carefully what color Gerald's eyes were. Eve answered without hesitation. "His eyes are red and gold, like jewels." He nodded. Only the legitimate heir of the imperial house has red gold eyes. So his daughter really had met his younger brother. "Do you remember anything Gerald said?" Eve remembered it clearly. Back then, Gerald had lost his temper with her mother. She had gotten angry and kicked him. To her surprise, he had apologized on his own, and then stayed to play with her. That memory was precious to the Duke as well. Since the woman he loved had died, he rarely heard anyone speak her name. He calculated his wife had died before his brother took the throne, so when Eve met Gerald, he must still have been crown prince. He wanted to ask more, but sadly Gerald had only stayed a short while that day. And that lovely memory stirred up her longing for her mother. Her throat tightened. Missing her mother always arrived without warning. She turned and buried herself in her father's chest, and wept quietly. She did not know how to say it and could only call her father's name again and again. He did not ask why she was crying. He only patted her back patiently. "I'm here." The sorrow in the room made the twins frown with worry for her. There was a knock at the door. The older sister rose to block it. "Not yet, she isn't stable right now." The steward could only ask the eldest to pass on the emperor's gift manifest, a full 1,314 carriages, all of it for Ivana. But the sister was thoroughly unimpressed. "Only 1,314? His Majesty knows perfectly well whose daughter she is and sends this little? How stingy." The steward, caught in the middle, defended him weakly. "The letter says His Majesty opened the treasury for this." Only then did the sister take it seriously. She hurried to hand it to their father. He coaxed his grieving daughter gently. "Gerald has prepared gifts for you. Do you want to go out and receive them, or shall the servants bring them in? If you are still afraid of the world outside, then we won't go. It's all right." He held the little one and felt no strain at all. "Whether you are at home or out doing something else, I will protect you every moment. The instant you feel afraid, your father will be there." Eve believed him, because he had destroyed the altar she feared most. Her brother and sister offered their own sincere vows. "We will stay by your side and protect you too. We can destroy altars as well." The two knelt on one knee and kissed her hand in the knight's manner, the highest pledge of loyalty they had. Eve was not used to it. She spun around, leaving the twins mortified, but then she made a tiny sound of assent, and the two nearly leapt through the ceiling with joy. A 5-year-old girl had her bones broken. She accepted it in silence, because she wanted to learn the sword. She did not want to spend her whole life resting in her father's arms. The treatment was slow and full of pain, but Eve's body had improved a great deal. The scars on her face and body vanished, and her skin returned to its old smoothness. 3 months passed. She wanted to go out for a walk. She wanted to sit in the sun in the garden. Her father insisted on going with her, but she shut her eyes tight. The pain of the past had convinced her the world was gray. Even with her mind made up, she was still terribly tense. He noticed at once that something was wrong. This could not go on. She could not stay in her shell forever just because she feared being hurt again. He said gently, "I don't know why the world looks gray to you, but the sky truly does turn gray sometimes, just as you say. Sometimes there is thunder and lightning too. It's only that there are also days that are perfectly clear." Eve bravely opened her eyes. A soft wind stirred the green leaves, and the smell of fresh grass made her eyes go wide. Perhaps the world was not as frightening as she had thought. Seeing her willing to reach out and touch the world, the Duke pressed his advantage. "Otherwise, your mother would never have loved this world so much." Watching her open her heart bit by bit, he was moved, his eyes shining with tears. "Even if the whole world turned gray and caught fire, I would still protect you, exactly as I promised that day." The twins behind him shouted too, "And us!" With 3 of her own to shelter her, Eve stopped sealing herself off. She was a grateful child, and she was working to heal her own wounded heart. At last they crossed the garden and reached the gates. 1,314 magnificent carriages were loaded with the emperor's gifts. But no gift, however splendid, could outshine their sister. In her siblings' eyes, 1,000 pieces of gold could not buy Eve. Their father wore a proud little expression. "Indeed, my daughter, and the daughter of Roger, whose name is written into the Empire's history." The children went on playing, and the Duke found himself thinking of Roger. A woman warrior, strong and beautiful. To survive under the old emperor, she had hammered herself without rest, until she surpassed even the current emperor. Roger had healed his heart too. They were a family who could heal each other. He walked over to Eve, asked whether the gifts pleased her, and ruffled her hair. Eve, hugging a plush rabbit, loved it. It was so soft to the touch. He instructed the steward to move everything into Eve's room once the gifts had been checked. "As for the horses, we have plenty. Keeping them only takes up space. Send them back to the emperor at once." Keep the pumpkin carriage, though. I assume that counts as a gift. The steward was astounded by his master's shamelessness, but his own face did not move an inch. Eve stared blankly at the adults, not understanding a word. The only thing she understood was that her father's arms were truly warm. The family was in no hurry to go inside. Instead, they strolled through the sunlit garden. When she saw the fountain, Eve was fascinated. Her father set her down and asked, "Would you like to put your feet in the water? It should feel lovely and cool." Then he rolled up her trouser legs. He always encouraged her to try anything new that caught her curiosity. And it was because he sheltered her that Eve dared to try. With her feet in the cool water, she felt she had just tasted another of the happiest feelings in the world. But he had not forgotten the twins behind him. He teased them. "Normally, the two of you would already be splashing about. You're showing remarkable restraint today. Go on, play, but don't get water all over yourselves or you'll catch cold." Then he noticed his daughter's little finger. It did not look like an ordinary person's finger. Looking closer, there were marks of displaced bone all over her body. But his daughter looked up at him full of hope. "I want to learn the sword." Swallowing the ache in his chest, he answered gently, "If you eat well, sleep well, and keep up your treatment, I will teach you the sword myself. By then you will be as formidable as your mother." Her siblings coaxed her too. "You'll be better than us for certain, because you're Roger's child." The little one wanted to hear more about her mother. Her brother smiled. "Your mother was the strongest of all. Even father's swordsmanship couldn't match hers." Her father agreed. "That's right. Your mother was the strongest because she could shatter the altar you fear most with a sword, and so will you." Eve came alive, her wide cat eyes filled with longing for the blade. That determination gladdened the Duke. It seemed he must settle the treatment plan with the physician quickly. Back in her warm bedroom, the Emperor's gifts had nearly filled every inch. The little one's eyes went round, so many. He handed his youngest to her siblings. "Watch her. Don't let the toys fall on her." Then he left. He had a treatment plan for Ivana to settle. The brother touched the shoulder his father had patted and could not help remarking, "Father has gotten so gentle." The sister was unsurprised. "He learned it from Roger, no doubt. You know he was never like this before." The two looked at their sister fondly. She clutched the enormous rabbit, delightedly announcing that it was a rabbit wearing clothes. The twins nearly melted. Their sister was far too adorable. The brother coaxed her. "Go and hug the rabbit." Eve was very nervous and edged into Sir Rabbit's arms. Then she could not resist and threw herself onto it. Its soft belly sank right in. Their sister looked so sweet that the two clapped their hands over their mouths, afraid a shriek would frighten her. But the sister could not hold it in and let out a yell. Her brother punched her. "Keep it down, you startled her." The sister knelt on the floor, shaking with suppressed laughter. The brother seized the chance to demonstrate how to play with the toy. "Look, Sir Rabbit's arms are very soft." Then he crossed the doll's arms around Eve. Wrapped in all that softness, Eve blurted out, "This is wonderful." The brother stepped forward and hugged his sister. Seeing Eve stiffen, he asked anxiously, "Don't you like me holding you?" The little one shook her head hard. The brother beamed. Only the sister suffered. "You little wretch. Did you hit me on purpose so you could hug her first?" He looked smug. Whoever seizes the moment first is the winner. The sister had no interest in his philosophy and flung herself onto her sister. Both of them toppled onto the rabbit. Their sister laughed out loud, thinking they were playing with her. The three played without a care. Eve loved that doll and never let go of it. But then she looked at her brother and sister. "You won't leave me, will you?" The two froze. Was their sister really this afraid? That was the question they should have been asking her. The sister stroked her head. "That's our line. Don't you leave us. Stay with us forever." As their arms tightened around her, Eve smiled a happy smile. "Then let's live happily together." But behind those happy days was a father carrying everything on his back. He worried over his youngest daughter's health, held the chaos of a newly crowned emperor's court together, and still had to hunt down the ones who had abused Eve. The steward was a little uneasy. Moving on this scale, would people not grow suspicious? The Duke did not care. Let them suspect him. Those people could not breach his defenses anyway. Just then, a knock at the study door. It was Eve's attending physician. His expression shifted from stern to worried. "I've noticed the child's hand." And the wounds around her arm and shoulder? Will the displaced bones be difficult to treat? Physician Shirley frowned. The young lady is still small and her bones have not set, so treatment is possible. But the process will be excruciating. He paced, rubbing his hands, his mind burning. If Eve endures it and the treatment succeeds, will she be able to learn the sword afterward? Shirley stared, unable to believe what she was hearing. The other physician thought the idea absurd. And the young lady had been abused for so long that her wounds inside were far from healed, let alone swordsmanship. But for the first time, the Duke was unyielding for his daughter's sake. That is Eve's own decision. Shirley was curious. May I ask why you insist she learn the sword? Not only because it is what she wants. I believe it is better for her to have the means to protect herself. Shirley disagreed. Do you not already carry the power of the Great Spirit? If the young lady never leaves this estate, what need has she of the sword? I am quite serious. Perhaps she has no talent for it at all. She dared to affront a duke only because she was thinking wholly of Eve. But as a father, how could he imprison his child at home for life in the name of protection? He answered with complete honesty. The moment Eve stops fearing this world, I will not keep her locked in this house. I will help her live in it. As her mother once said, the guardian of the Great Spirit must not be caged in comfort for her own protection. She must step outside these walls and make her name known. The guardian of the Great Spirit should be someone everyone honors, not someone whose power is stripped away. This was the Duke's resolve to change things for his daughter's sake. Because he spoke with sincerity rather than in the voice of command, Shirley decided to give him everything she had. But every treatment until now had only been skin deep. From here, the true pain would begin. To learn the sword, the child let the physician break her arm. The bones in her arm had been displaced for a very long time. Breaking and resetting them was the only cure. She had thought she was better now. But inside, she had never truly walked out of the dark. Until the moment she saw a soldier in armor, the child's defenses collapsed in an instant. Back then, it was people exactly like that who had taken her away. And people exactly like that who had given her such an agonizing past. She thought she was about to be taken again. Until her father appeared. He gathered up the writhing Eve, patting her back. Eve, don't be afraid. Father is here. He also noticed that her symptoms were identical to last time. Collapsing on the floor and convulsing. Last time it was a tub that resembled an altar. So what was it this time? Feeling her pain, he grew more frantic. Only when Eve emerged from the panic and asked softly why there was a man in iron clothing here did he find the cause. He turned and looked coldly at the armored soldier. It was the armor. It reminded her of the men who had tormented her on the altar. So he prescribed accordingly, explaining patiently. Eve, not everyone who wears armor is a bad person. Your mother wore armor too. But Eve was deeply guarded. She did not believe it. But Mother never wore armor when she was with me, and you don't wear it either. Think back. Your mother in the portrait is wearing armor as well. Shall we go and visit her? Then he signaled the knight to withdraw, and kept him away from his daughter to avoid another episode. Standing before her mother's portrait, Eve lowered her head, trembling, afraid to look, until her father introduced it in his gentlest voice. Look, these hard clothes are called armor. When you fight someone, armor keeps a blade from reaching anything vital. And every set of armor in front of you was worn by your mother. At last, Eve dared to look straight at them. Her father added, Every knight who carries a sword wears armor. One day you will wear it too, like us, to protect your own body. Eve asked her last question. But I've never seen you wear it. Because armor is very heavy. We don't need it at home. If I didn't wear armor, would you want me to be wounded in battle, Eve? The little one shook her head immediately. He changed the subject at once. Then would you like to grow strong? And protect me? And would you like to grow strong enough to punish the people who tormented you yourself? Led along like that, Eve stopped fearing armor. She began daring to look straight at the things that had once hurt her. Her father added, Your brother and sister will wear armor too, and defeat your enemies alongside you. At last, the knot in Eve's chest came loose. He wiped away her tears and pressed a light kiss to her. Eve, remember this. Whatever those people did to you, whatever they said to you, none of it was your fault. Then he carried her back to her room and quietly resolved to accelerate his daughter's training. He could not protect her forever. Eve had to learn how to wield her own power. Meanwhile, her brother and sister were tending her carefully, wiping the softest cheek with the softest towel. Eve opened her eyes. Her sister's eyes were full of pity, but her sister suddenly asked, "Will you two wear armor as well?" The twins froze. They had not forgotten their father's warning. Their sister feared armor. The brother explained cautiously, "We don't wear it yet because we're too small and armor is too heavy." But Eve pressed on. "Armor is cold and hard. What if it hurts you?" The sister suddenly thought of a good idea. She took her sister's hand and led her outside. In the wide back courtyard, her brother and sister each held Eve's favorite thing, a sword. The keen blades glittered in the sun. Eve was full of admiration. Her sister said, "A sword can wound people, but it can also protect your body, just like armor." Then she demonstrated for her. The two siblings stopped short of contact and did not hurt each other. Their brilliant sparring made Eve clap and cheer. Judging the moment right, the sister asked, "If one of us were wounded and bleeding, would you still say that?" On a battlefield, the enemy means to take your life. To avoid being wounded, you must wear armor. The brother saw his sister still hesitating and pressed on. The little one shook her head hard. He explained gently, "Then you needn't fear armor either, because a sword, iron clothing, and armor all serve the same purpose. If you aren't afraid of a sword, you needn't be afraid of armor." Eve nodded, half understanding. But the fear once carved into her bones was slowly dissolving. She tried to lift a sword, but she was still too small, and there was little strength in her body. Even so, under her siblings' loving gaze, she made up her mind. "I'm going to eat well and get stronger and stronger." The twins, undone by her, sandwiched her between them in a hug, then asked with an air of mystery, "Would you like to go and see Father's swords?" "That's right. There's armor in Father's armory as well." Eve grew excited at once. The moment she stepped through the door, her father's striking black armor caught her eye. Strangely, she felt no fear at all. To her, black armor was not as frightening as silver. The twins thought of a way to rid their sister of her fear as well. Encouraged by her brother and sister, she finally walked out of her fear of armor. She was still a little afraid of altars, but she was very different from the child she had been. She did not want and could not bear to let her family's efforts go to waste. So she began opening the gifts her uncle the emperor had sent. Just then her father arrived with a meal. A flying dagger buried itself in the door right beside his cheek. The corner of the duke's mouth twitched. For a moment he had nothing to say. Eve scrambled up off the floor. "Father!" He held dinner in one hand and patted her head with the other, and even praised her. "Eve is a genius. You haven't learned to hold a hilt, and you can already throw with that precision." The little one glowed with pride. But her father was thinking things through. Last time a large diamond came out of the gifts, this time a short blade. Who knew what else was dangerous in there? It seemed another inspection was in order. He passed her a piece of roast beef. "Eve, if you want to use weapons, you need to build up your strength. So hurry up and eat." Eve's mouth watered instantly. But then she realized she had never seen her father eat. She wanted to eat with him. Hearing that, the Duke nearly wept. His daughter had finally learned to think of others. He explained gently that he and her siblings ate separately in the dining hall. Eve was very curious. That night, every servant in the estate was on edge. By the Duke's order, the enormous dining table was replaced with a small, cozy one. Once the food was laid out, the servants all hid themselves so as not to startle the young lady. The twins were pleased too. Father could no longer keep their sister to himself. With a creak, the dining hall doors opened. Eve greeted everyone warmly. She was no longer the child who had not dared to speak. And the instant she saw the plate of meat, her eyes turned to stars. This looked so delicious. Even the famously cold Duke was startled into laughter. "No rush, there's plenty of good food, we'll take our time." Having never eaten duck before, Eve was so delighted she waved her arms about. Her siblings watched with narrowed, contented eyes. Their sister was too adorable. The whole family competed to feed Eve. It was a wonderful meal. Afterward, they had dessert together. This time it was shaved ice, which Eve had never tasted. The cold sensation was entirely new to her. It melted the moment it touched her tongue. She felt as though two small angels in her head were sounding trumpets of happiness. Her father stopped her from wolfing it down. Eat that much and you'll upset your stomach. Eve drooped like a dejected puppy, ears down, thoroughly sad. Her sister quickly changed the subject to cheer her. Eve, is there something you want to tell father? Something like anticipation flickered in the Duke's eyes. Eve told him, I went to see your armor earlier and I wasn't frightened at all, because that armor is the same color as your hair. He thought this over, then announced calmly, It seems we shall have to change the color of every suit of armor in the Knight Order. The twins nodded in agreement. It would cost a great deal of money, but it was for their sister, so it hardly counted. Yet only a month had passed, and the child had already blended into the household. Her brother and sister spoiled her to the skies, merely to decide who got to ride with her. The two nearly brought the house down. Their sister was a little bewildered, but she remembered how dashing her sister looked wielding a sword, and named her sister as her protector. Only the brother suffered. Even so, he dutifully led the horse for his sisters. Taking her to the stables, every animal there clustered around her adoringly. That was the power of the guardian of the Great Spirit. Kinship with spirits, beasts, plants, and every living thing. The horses jostled for a chance to lick Eve's small face. But her sister was a little worried. However strong her affinity, it was useless against humans and demon beasts. The knight beside them did not understand. Demon beasts defy nature, so that much makes sense. But it doesn't work on people either? Her brother was not surprised. Think about it. If humans were affectionate creatures, our sister would never have been abused like that. At that thought, a mocking smile crossed his face. Perhaps it meant humans were no different from demon beasts. Smiling and waving at her sister, the older girl quietly warned the knight, This must be kept secret. If outsiders learn she can commune with beasts and plants, those who covet that power will only multiply. The knight's face turned grave. He would give everything to protect the young lady. Before she had her fill, Eve had to return to her room. It was time for games with the physician. This was an exercise Shirley had designed to test Eve's physical condition. That classic test of fitness, the seated forward bend. Eve cooperated obediently. But the physician noticed something. Eve was still going barefoot. Because in her nightmare of a memory, the only thing she had ever worn was a torn straw mat. The maids had put shoes on her twice, but she found them uncomfortable and took them off. Accepting new things is never easy, least of all for a child with such deep psychological wounds. Every time she managed to finish an exercise, Shirley praised her lavishly. That made the child very happy. The physician knew at once, now is the moment. She took out a handkerchief and wiped Eve's sweat. Eve still doesn't like wearing shoes? The little one did not dodge the question. No, shoes are heavy and they hurt. Father said I don't have to wear them. She smiled and explained with great care and gentleness. I see. But if Eve always goes barefoot, her feet will get hurt. Home is safe, but outside there may be sharp things, like broken glass. Eve grew anxious at once. Do I have to wear them right now? She needed time to adjust. Fortunately, the physician understood immediately and stroked her head to soothe her. Get used to it slowly. Besides, have I ever made Eve do something she hated? From beginning to end, the child had known this woman meant her well. The fear in her chest vanished, replaced by absolute trust. She was accepting new things faster and faster. The physician was glad. The child was getting better every day. Then she hugged the little one clinging to her. Come, Eve. This time let's do some knee bends. It was all preparation for the day Eve would wear shoes. Simply because the child liked bare feet. Her father sought out the finest cobbler in the empire and had a pair of battle shoes made just for her. Eve's attention was captured at once. But then she hesitated. If she put shoes on, what if her feet became heavy and painful again? She remembered the misery of having her feet bound with rope. She glanced hesitantly at her father. Father promised me. He said he would never let me be hurt again. With Father here, I can do it. The child quietly encouraged herself. Once the soft fur slippers were on, she felt no discomfort anywhere, and even laughed at the funny little shape at the toe. Father, I love them. The Duke was delighted too. Then would you like to wear them down to the dining hall today? Thinking of her brother and sister waiting there, she agreed at once. Holding one of her father's fingers, she walked steadily on her own. The twins, seeing their sister in slippers, were more excited than she was. Not long after, the peaceful ducal estate met its first true challenge. The imperial house sent a letter in secret. Presumably, the emperor wished to know how his niece was doing. At first, the duke thought little of it. But once he read its contents, he tensed instantly. Cold sweat beaded on his face. "Read this." The steward was very curious. What could be written there to make his master look so grim? He never expected that a second later his own hair would stand on end. The duke propped up his chin. If what this letter says is true, how much time do we have left? The steward's face was rigid. Only half a month. He summoned every one of his trusted men at once. The room was thick with killing intent. In the half-month remaining, we must be perfectly prepared. The whole estate knew something enormous was coming. The twins admired their adorable sister, while discussing the arrival of the summer rains. It was then that the great event would happen. The little one sat between them and asked curiously, "What are the summer rains?" They explained patiently, "It's a grand festival. On that day, everyone in the ducal lands rests, father too, so he can play with you all day." The little one lit up at once, longing for the summer rains. She wished the day would come quickly. The twins hugged their adorable sister tight. The three of them tangled together happily. Meanwhile, their father was still preparing his plan in a rush. The great event they spoke of was, in fact, Eve's approaching birthday. At breakfast the next morning, her father noticed at once that something was different about his daughter. "Is the food not to your taste?" The child looked up and smiled. "You'll stay with me today, won't you?" Once she had a firm answer, Eve threw herself into his arms. "Shall we go for a walk in the flower garden?" Then the two of them, one large and one small, went off toward the garden laughing. After a good deal of roughhousing, Eve tired out at last and plopped down in the pavilion. Her father watched her fondly and noticed her hair damp with sweat. "Eve, shall I tie your hair up for you?" The child agreed happily. After a great deal of fumbling, she came away with the most adorable ponytail imaginable. Watching her laugh from the bottom of her heart, he thought, as long as you are happy, mobilizing the entire estate for your birthday is nothing at all. Simply because of one little girl's birthday, an entire nation was thrown into motion. Not only the ducal estate, even the emperor personally chose her gifts. At last the birthday arrived. Eve wore a princess dress sewn by a dozen tailors and pushed open the dining hall doors. She saw shimmering violet light rippling across the ceiling. She had never seen such a thing. The duke watched every reaction of hers and could not help asking, "Do you like it?" The child nodded hard. "There are so many strange and beautiful things here." Her father smiled with satisfaction. "Then Eve, would you like to open that door yourself?" Following the direction he pointed, Eve walked over. On the other side stood her brother and sister, dressed in the same colors she was. "Beautiful," she marveled inwardly. Then she asked, "What are all these?" They did not answer, only asked eagerly, "Do you like it?" In truth, as long as it came from her siblings and her father, Eve would love anything. The whole magnificent surprise tonight had been prepared for her alone. Her father had walked behind her all along, but now he knelt on one knee and pressed a kiss to the back of her hand. "Happy birthday." Eve's eyes went wide with shock. Then, as though from another life, she remembered, "That's right, I have a birthday too. The only person who ever celebrated my birthday was my mother, and she died before my third birthday. And her second life had begun at the age of 3, so she had forgotten her own birthday entirely. She had never imagined she would be blessed like this." The Duke took her hand. "My beloved daughter, your birth is the greatest blessing this family has ever received, and today is the happiest day of my life. Because years ago on this day, the little girl your mother and I treasured was born." Eve's tears fell. Something in her ached. Everyone had once called her a sacrifice and said she had no worth beyond that. And her father told her that her existence alone was enough to make him happy. On a day this joyful, she did not want to cry, but the tears would not be held back. Her father pulled her close. Her siblings held her and soothed her. Eve felt so warm. Even when she cried, her father was not angry and did not ignore her. She was still held tight by her family. And the first gift was wheeled out in front of her. To make this cake, the pastry chef had spent a full 49 days. Her siblings took her hands. "You have to make a birthday wish." The little one had never made a wish before. Guided by her brother, she made one silently, then blew out the candles. The 3 siblings embraced, like 3 adorable little animals. Next came her father's turn to give his gift. This was the betrothal gift Eve's mother had once given the Duke. Now it had returned to their daughter. He fastened it on her himself. "May the blessing of the sun be with you." The tears Eve had just stopped threatened to spill again. Her sister could not bear to see her cry and cut in quickly. "Wait, we haven't given our gifts and you've already made her cry. They can't compare with father's." But we prepared carefully too. Rabbit slippers and a parasol. Children are children. Her attention was captured all over again. If only time could stop at this moment. To win one smile from his daughter, her father finally played his trump card. A whole table of delicacies spread out before her. At the sight of the food, Eve's face broke into a radiant smile. Watching it, her father went still. He could not describe what he felt. Because the day he first met this child, all he saw was a small body carrying a crushing weight. Her tiny frame was covered in countless wounds. But more than the wounds on the outside, what worried him most was this. What if the wounds inside her never healed? Then he would consider it all his own fault. For failing to find his missing daughter in time. For letting her suffer so much. That guilt tormented a father hour by hour, until his daughter proved she could live this tenaciously. That genuine, blossoming smile let him finally breathe. He hugged his beloved daughter and laughed. "Today is your birthday, and yet I am the one who received a precious gift. Happy birthday." Then came the long-awaited feast. Every dish on that table was one Eve had never tasted. Her siblings bickered as always. Not over a slice of pizza. This was a war of dignity. And the youngest turned out to be the one who profited. One stab of her fork stole it from both of them. Their father watched with relief. His youngest no longer shrank behind her siblings. She was so much more alive now. Eating like this, Eve would surely grow healthier and healthier. "There's cake later. Don't stuff yourself." Her siblings went to cut her a slice. The little one looked at the mound of strawberries, mouth watering without stopping. Soft sponge and sweet strawberry jam. So good that Eve nearly fainted. Her father told her to look at the empty space to the right of the hall. Suddenly it was full of gift boxes. He told her those were gifts prepared for her by everyone in the estate. Everyone loved Eve very much. The child was bewildered. Besides her family, other people liked her too. Hadn't they only ever seen her as a sacrifice? But that mountain of gifts answered her. Eve felt she was truly deeply happy. She had always been grateful to have found her family, because without them, no one would love her. But she never imagined so many others cared for her, some of whom she had never even met. She cried, but these were tears of gratitude. Her father said gently, "In time, even more people will love you." What he did not say aloud was, "When you can accept the love of others openly, you will no longer fear anyone." And by then, his daughter would surely stand on her own strength and become a warrior nothing could break. And so Eve closed the day in warmth and happiness. Early the next morning, her siblings could not wait to see her, because it was the day to measure their sister's height again. But no one could have guessed how unusual this family's method of measuring height would be, or how dangerous. Simply because his daughter smiled at him once, he bought her an entire villa. Everyone said he spoiled her far too much, but the Duke did not see it that way. He wanted his withdrawn daughter to step out of her room and see how beautiful the world outside could be. Using the gift as an excuse, he began preparing a short trip to the villa. At first, Eve was a little afraid, but hearing that her siblings and her father were all coming, she relaxed. With her family beside her, nothing bad could possibly happen. The Duke prepared thoroughly. First, his daughter's displaced bones had healed. So that her psychological treatment could continue, he intended to bring physician Shirley as well. And Shirley now had eyes for no one but Eve. If the young lady shows the slightest sign of distress, we return to the estate at once. She had long since thought of Eve as her own child, not only loving her, but teaching her. Watching Eve grow more like her dashing mother by the day, Shirley fed her treats now and then. Watching her chew with her cheeks puffed like a small animal, she felt every effort had been worth it. She hugged Eve and nuzzled her cheek. "That tickles," Shirley blurted out what she truly felt. "Heavens, how can you be this adorable? Forget being the daughter of the Duke and Roger. Be my daughter instead." The little one took her seriously, touched Shirley's face, and said anxiously, "You mustn't. If a child disappeared, her father and mother would be heartbroken." But Eve could not bear to see her sad either. She burrowed into Shirley's arms to comfort her. "Even though I'm not your daughter, you are the first teacher of my life. I have always been grateful to you." Eve now understood what feelings were. Shirley was deeply moved, as though a seedling she had watered for so long had finally grown. "I thank you too. You matter a great deal to me." When the doting was over, Shirley took Ivana outside to exercise. Spotting her brother and sister, the little one greeted them happily. She did not know that their casually elegant appearance was in fact carefully timed to her exercise hour. Watching their sister bound about, the twins remarked like two adults. Children really do love running around, forgetting that they were children themselves. Though at 8 years old, the two had already been drilling with swords like mad, with no time at all for running about and playing. Eve remembered the adorable horses again, and dragged everyone off to the stables. "Are you all well? Is anything bothering you?" A pity horses cannot speak. Otherwise, they would have told her themselves how much they had missed her. Her siblings watched with relief. Their sister was as beloved by animals as ever. Strangely, however, the horses so gentle with their sister would not spare the twins a glance. The sister raised a threatening fist. "Why do I get the feeling that the moment she shows up, these creatures stop seeing us at all?" Before she finished, their eyes fell on Kai, the fiercest horse in the stable. He was slamming furiously into the door that held him. The way he snorted made the brother remark, "Whether their sister came or not," Kai's temper never changed. A moment later, Kai burst through the door. He charged straight at Eve, surrounded by the other horses. Watching her embrace the other horses, Kai could not contain his jealousy. He came barreling toward the small figure in the middle of them all. But the child did not panic and was not hurt in the slightest. With one hand alone, she stopped Kai's massive body. Then she lectured him sternly. "You have to behave. I haven't finished talking to Jack, and I still have to go see Uter later." Kai snorted resentfully. But Eve did not yield an inch. "No, you will stand here properly, otherwise I won't ride you." Kai lowered his head, crestfallen, and even shed a few miserable tears. The twins watched from a distance with glee. That brute finally got himself into trouble. Once she had greeted every last horse, her siblings led the horses out. Watching her sister mount so smartly, Eve stared dazzled. "You're amazing." The sister could not hide her delight at the praise. Even Kai, being ridden, looked thoroughly proud. The sister lifted her up onto the horse. The height did not frighten her. She smiled even wider. She stroked the horse's head. "I'm counting on you today." The wild horse who could not stop himself moments ago was now beside himself. "She trusts me. How wonderful. I really am magnificent." The sister saw it instantly and whispered a warning in his ear. "Calm down. If you run too hard and my sister falls, I will never forgive you." He fell silent immediately. Galloping across the endless grassland, Eve was overjoyed. The wind on her face was cool. She leaned back into her sister's arms. At last they arrived. A lake ringed by forest, glittering in the sun. Eve reached out and touched the cool water. It was a sensation she had never experienced. Her brother worried a little that she might fall in. But her sister advised him, overprotection is not a kindness. She wanted her sister to touch as many new things and feel as much as possible. Because until now, her sister had never known what freedom was. The three children began a happy picnic. But one sentence from their sister left them frozen where they stood. "One day the moon will come and swallow me." Even so, she was not afraid, because she had tasted the true beauty of this world in time. But to the twins, this was anything but a small matter. They went straight back and repeated every word to their father. The Duke suspected his youngest had the power of foresight, and knew the day she would die. If his guess were true, it would be too tragic to bear. The daughter he pitied most had long since prepared herself to walk into death. But when Eve appeared before him, he was as gentle as ever. He greeted her. "How has my adorable daughter been?" Eve smiled brightly and showed off the new shoes on her feet. "Look, the maid sewed these for me herself." Eve was excited. "Father, from now on I'll knock before I come in too." The knight beside them said, "The young lady is old enough to begin instruction in etiquette." But the Duke held his daughter and objected openly. "What use is learning all that etiquette?" The knight panicked. But then he understood. The twins had never followed any etiquette either. And as Roger's daughter, no one would dare say a word about her. The father and daughter spent a warm day together. When night fell, the Duke drank alone. In public, a magnificent and imposing Duke. In private, a man turned into a little cook for his daughter's sake. He drank only because he had heard the twins repeat one sentence. "One day I will melt into the moonlight." He could not believe it. The daughter he treasured most had long since prepared herself for death. But the next day, the moment he saw her smile, he felt a little lighter. Compared with all his fears for the future, making his daughter happy right now was what mattered most. Etiquette indeed. If my daughter doesn't want to learn it, she doesn't have to. He invited Eve for a walk with feigned ease. Father and daughter walked through the wide garden. Eve suddenly asked, "So what should I learn?" He explained patiently, "Besides letters, there is a great deal to learn. It will become food for your spirit. The more you learn, the more it will serve you later." But Eve did not understand why he would not let her learn etiquette. As a noble, the Duke knew it well. Etiquette is not learned for oneself, but for the eyes of others. If his daughter were bound by etiquette, she would lose her freedom. And knowledge of etiquette helps nothing in life. It only adds an invisible yoke. So you needn't force yourself to learn it. You needn't care what others think. Eve was very happy, because only her father said such things to her. Eve now dared to say what she felt. Her father was overjoyed. Then, to please her, he decided on the spot to take her on an outing. Having never been on one, Eve was instantly thrilled. But hearing that they would leave in 2 days, she hung her head in disappointment. Until her father held a biscuit up to her mouth. Eve suddenly asked, "So will there be lots of good food on the outing?" "Of course. We can even cook it ourselves." The child covered her mouth in astonishment. Father can cook? She remained skeptical, because her mother's cooking was truly a horror. The Duke was wounded. When the two of them were courting, he had done all the cooking. Seeing his daughter's dubious face, he made up his mind. He would find an occasion to display his culinary skill before her. At 2 a.m. on the day of departure, Eve went to wake her father. Leaving early meant more time to play. The Duke laughed without a sound and gave in and got up. Her siblings had long been ready. Over breakfast, they gestured wildly, explaining what camping was and what a tent was. Eve puzzled over it painfully. What did these things mean? When she saw the magnificent pumpkin carriage, she walked a full circle around it with her mouth hanging open, then went to greet the horses she had befriended. Her father scooped up the child bouncing about on the ground and was about to board when the entire estate came out to see them off. Eve did not understand. Her father taught her how to say goodbye. You do not say, "I'm leaving," you say, "See you again." Because when the trip is over, we will come back. In that moment, Eve realized she had a place to come back to. So she stopped being shy and raised her hand high. Everyone's heart warmed. Farewells rose from every direction. Eve was thrilled, because the carriage rolled slowly along the road, and her family was all around her. Along the way, they even got out to feel the wind and pick fruit. By evening, her siblings took her to fetch water. To her, everything outdoors was new. Seeing her father, she raised both arms and wheedled, "I'm hungry." "Perfect timing, here's dinner." She took the bowl the maid had filled. Sweet vegetables, tender beef, and a bowl of hot soup. She praised her father without stopping. He sat beside her and exhaled. "Good. Thank you for the compliment." Eve froze. Had a dinner this good really been cooked by her father's own hands? He mobilized every man in the territory and built his daughter a castle unlike any other. Eve cried out with excitement. She ran through the whole castle. "This is my room. This is my hanging chair. Slow down, everything here is yours." Watching the little one sprawl across the hanging chair, he plucked her up. "Let me show you the view outside the window." The little one, who had been slightly annoyed a moment ago, changed expression entirely. It was an enormous man-made lake. "Eve, shall we go boating today?" The little one did not understand. But once her father explained, her eyes turned to stars again. She immediately dragged him toward the door. But however urgent she was, she did not forget to call her brother and sister. Moments later, the whole family stood at the lakeshore. Eve looked at the water and asked in earnest, "Brother, have you ever gone in the water?" The sister butted in first. "Of course, our little roan even wanted to go in and fish out the stars." The two were about to open their daily quarrel when Eve asked a question of devastating innocence. "Brother, did you really catch a star?" The answer was certainly no, but their father beside them turned red. He had once promised to pick the stars for Eve. At last, they all remembered the real business of the day. Sitting in the small boat with its genuine leather seats, Eve clung nervously to her sister. What do we do? If I fall in, I can't swim. Then her curiosity switched on. One moment peering at this, the next touching that. And the Duke, the most exalted man in the land, had become a boatman. His daughter said only, "I want to play in the water," and he shot to his feet. Full speed ahead, then sharp drifting turns. His two adjutants watched in a cold sweat. By nightfall, the child crept out of bed. While her father, who had rowed all day, slept soundly, she opened the window. Outside, water and sky ran together as one. She picked up the necklace that stood for her mother. "Look, Mother, it's so beautiful here." The necklace glimmered in response. She cupped it in her hands, as though cradling a small, warm sun. Early the next morning, the family set out again. Because Eve had come, the entire forest turned out to greet her. They even brought her fresh fruit. Thinking of the good food her father would bring back, Eve's mouth watered again. The twins were not idle either. They wanted to pick mushrooms for soup later. But they were not sure whether this kind was poisonous. Eve cut in. "Those ones are poisonous, don't touch them. The rabbit told me they can't be eaten." Then she pointed elsewhere. "Those ones you can eat." Her sister ruffled her hair. "Our Eve is amazing. Without you, we wouldn't even know which mushrooms were safe." Just then their father returned. But look as she might, she saw no good food anywhere. He understood at once. "Everything I found has been sent back to the villa. Shall we have a feast tonight?" Seeing his daughter's disappointed little face, he produced, as if by magic, a basket of food. "This is our lunch. Go and call your brother and sister." But Eve did not know they were plotting something far larger, except that what happened next left everyone stunned. Eve was floating in midair, and the crimson necklace that never left her summoned a great fiery serpent. "Eve, the one who holds my contract." Seeing the serpent, Eve choked up. It was the only friend who had ever brought her warmth in a lifetime of cold. Eve held it and wept. She wanted to stay with it. But a moment later, the serpent vanished again. The Duke called his daughter's name softly. Eve came back to herself, her face like someone who had set down a great weight. Her father felt relieved. He did not know who that serpent was or what it had done, but at least his daughter was unharmed. His relief lasted barely 2 seconds before Eve collapsed for no apparent reason. Everyone called her name in alarm, and Eve seemed to have entered some wondrous space. There she felt a comfort she had never known. Suddenly, a voice spoke. "Give it to me." The child was lost. "Give you what?" "Give me a name." As the words ended, a black sphere shimmering with color rose before Eve. "Let me punish the guilty in your place." Eve spoke slowly. "Then your name is Reina." The instant the words left her, in a temple 1,000 miles away, those who were stealing the Holy Spirit's power dropped to their knees. Before they could understand what was happening, the old man at their head realized something. He crawled forward like a masterless dog. The other two felt it too. And the old man began to howl. "No, it cannot be lost like this." He even considered it his by right. This power belonged to him. At that same moment, Eve was wrapped in holy light. Her father seemed to sense something too and ordered his lieutenant to prepare an immediate return. The man did not understand, so he explained. "Anyone who sees that light will know Eve is here." The sister could hold back no longer. Their father's face was full of worry. There was only one explanation for this. Eve had summoned the moon spirit. Eve slowly opened her eyes. Gentle moonlight carried her down to the ground. A butterfly with strange markings came fluttering over and settled lightly into her palm. The child was surprised and delighted. "The Great Spirit?" The butterfly spoke in a human voice. "At last we meet, my beloved guardian." But the child said her guardian was only that great serpent. "Because back then you had not the strength left to meet me." The butterfly soared upward. "My precious guardian, for you I could grind everything in this world to dust." Eve remembered what her mother had once told her. A world ruled by the moon is a cold and merciless world, so people must always beware of the moon. Only now did she understand what her mother truly meant. That cold, merciless moonlight was the moon spirit itself. The child asked timidly, "Will you grind me to dust as well?" "Be at ease, child. In my eyes you have done no wrong. Not now, and never in the future." But the child still did not understand. The Great Spirit saw through her. "Be at ease. Your mother loved you until her very last breath." Truly. Of course, so let go of all that old pain. Hearing that, tears streamed down Eve's face. She remembered the beautiful days with her mother. Just then, the great serpent appeared, hovering. "Be at ease, child. We are always with you." But the two great spirits who had just sworn to protect the girl turned on her father, meaning to kill him. And all because he had prepared a surprise for his daughter. The two spirits appeared at once. "You dare threaten our child." Before Eve could react, her father had already taken a beating from both. "It isn't like that." Eve threw her arms wide in front of him. She was about to speak when her father spoke first. "I would never harm my own daughter. I only want to love her well." Then he held out his hand. Eve stood rooted in place. It was the first time she had heard her father speak in that tone. The two guardian spirits seemed to sense that he bore no ill will and nodded slightly. "Come, let us go inside." This was the very room where her father had destroyed the altar. Back then, she had never imagined a day like this one. And even now, her heart still fluttered uneasily. But the instant the door opened, all of it vanished. The place had become a wooden cabin, and every brick and tile of it had been built to match the wooden cabin where she had once lived with her mother. Seeing his daughter's reaction, her father was rather pleased with himself. "I thought you might miss this place, so I had it built for you." But he did not think that was enough. He had every bathroom in the estate rebuilt the same way. "Wherever you are, you can bathe without fear." Eve was overjoyed and deeply moved. She threw her arms around him and kissed him, and a moment later chased him out of the room, because she could not wait to enjoy her time in there. The maid who bathed her rubbed her hands eagerly, waiting to scrub the young lady's back. But a second later, she noticed something wrong. "My lady, your body—" Everyone hurried to fetch the physician. Under the family's anxious eyes, she announced something unbelievable. The young lady's wounds seemed to have healed overnight, as though she had never been injured at all. Her father hurried over to look. He examined her for a long time before he dared believe it was true. The twins whooped for joy. Even the maid wept with emotion. It truly was a miracle. Only yesterday her body had been exactly as before. Just then the moon spirit appeared. Her father understood at once, so the great spirit could heal as well. The little butterfly sniffed. "You thought all I could do was protect Eve? Raina, did you heal me?" "Of course, I would do anything for you." Eve was more puzzled. Why had the other guardian spirit not healed her? Because the sun spirit has no power to heal. The moon spirit is different. The healthier the guardian's body, the stronger the spirit's power. So healing Eve is only natural. While the two of them were basking in warmth, the physician voiced her question. "May I ask a few things about Eve? Who are you? Why should I answer you?" She introduced herself with great respect. The spirit withdrew its killing intent. "It cost me nothing to tell you. Your manners are far better than that fellow's after all." The brother stood frozen. The strongest man in the empire was, to a spirit, merely that fellow. Then he began calculating. It seemed that to play with his sister in future, he would have to get on its good side. Then the two of them began introducing themselves with great respect as well. But the Great Spirit was very friendly to the children, which left both the physician and the father envious. Only the father suffered. Eve opened her innocent eyes wide. Until now, she had believed her rebirth was a curse. But meeting her family and reuniting with the Great Spirit, she realized this might not be a curse after all. Eve wanted to know more, but Raina stopped there. It had to keep the gods' secrets. Seeing the little one's face fall, it changed tack at once. "It isn't that I can tell you nothing. I can tell you about myself. But in the end, you were able to summon me because the state of your heart has changed." Eve was baffled. The you of the past thought only of giving up. But the you of today carries resentment toward those people, and the you of tomorrow will challenge them. Eve broke into a sweat. That was the past she least wanted to remember. And now she was told she would challenge them. "But do not be afraid," Raina's tone shifted. "I will become your sword." "Can I really? Can I punish the wicked the way my mother did?" "If you wish it, then you certainly can." Eve went still. The two guardian spirits encouraged her as well. But Raina added a warning. "Punishing the guilty is your right, but it is not the whole of your life. We would rather see you happy." Remembering every small thing since she came home, and the family who cradled her so carefully, Eve nodded. "I understand. I won't think that way again." I'll work toward happiness. Eve happily embraced her two guardian spirits. Do not fear, child. We will work for you too. Seeing her spirits lift, the two guardians were glad. Deep in the night, her father came quietly to Eve's door. A trace of worry crossed his usually cold face. That day he had told Eve again and again not to leave the estate for the time being. Because everyone saw the light when you summoned the spirit. To keep you safe, this is all we can do for now. Then do I have to stay in here forever? Until you are strong enough to protect yourself. Eve nodded eagerly. Then I'll stay home and grow really strong, and then it will be my turn to protect all of you. Hearing that, her father's heart filled with honey. But even so, some had already lost patience. They had begun fighting over who the Great Spirit belonged to. He trusted His Majesty to handle it, but for Eve, he was prepared to give up everything. In the capital at that moment, an immaculately dressed minister was making an impassioned speech. Your Majesty, since a new guardian has descended into the world, the Empire must shoulder the duty of protecting her. The Uncle Emperor smiled coldly. Such hypocrisy, but he did not care to expose it yet. Another noble rose. The guardian would surely live better in the capital. I second it. We should protect the Great Spirit and help her grow. One after another they stood, their mouths full of falsehood. The Emperor's eyes were ice. Then an old monk rose. If she can summon a spirit, then the guardian is old enough to manage on her own. The Emperor was mildly surprised. Could the man be sincere? But a second later he saw through it all. Because the man who coveted the spirit's power most, Duke Weir, had spoken. Very well. The Empire shall guard the new guardian of the Great Spirit. The old man beside him looked thoroughly pleased with himself. If no one has further objections, we will end here for today. The hall erupted at once. Your Majesty, we have not yet found the guardian. The Emperor was unbothered. I said we would protect the guardian. I never said we would bring her back. The room broke into murmurs again, but the Emperor did not indulge them. The light appeared within the Duke's territory, so let the duty of guarding her fall to the Duke. Of course, if any of you truly wish to protect the Great Spirit, you may go and offer your services at the ducal estate yourselves. That put them all in a difficult position. The spirit's power was mouth-watering. But the Duke, called the strongest man in the Empire, was no one to trifle with. One minister still meant to press the point, but the Emperor's eyes gave him his answer. Having driven the man back, the Emperor sighed. Don't imagine I can't see what you are all scheming. But since you asked so very sincerely, I shall be generous and tell you. The power you covet belongs to the true-born daughter of the previous guardian and the present Duke. The old man's eyes nearly fell out of his head. The Emperor added one more heavy line. And one more thing. That girl is also my own niece. Anyone who wishes to touch her is welcome to try. The great hall fell as silent as a tomb. At the ducal estate, the steward was reporting good news. The servants are overjoyed to hear the young lady summoned the Great Spirit. Others manage it at 13. Our Lady did it at 5. But the Duke showed no sign of joy. Too many people knowing was not necessarily a good thing. The steward seemed to see his hesitation. The servants would like to hold a surprise party for the young lady. You needn't worry, my lord. It will be held in the Lion Hall inside the estate, and the two spirits are there to keep her safe. Her father hesitated. The Lion Hall was where he and Roger had held their wedding. After some thought, he agreed all the same. Just then came an urgent knock. My lord, an express letter from the frontier. It was from the Emperor. He wrote that he had dealt with those at court who coveted Eve, and that Count Elant and his wife were on their way here. But the Duke still did not dare relax, because such people would only multiply. Hearing the Count and his wife were coming, he was glad. It seemed they were no longer alone. He read on. It seemed the Illants were not the only ones coming to bless them. Lady Vera was arriving as well. The Duke brightened at once. At that moment, Eve was excitedly introducing her friends to the two spirits. This is Sir Rabbit. He's soft and warm to hug. Then someone called her name. She looked and saw her father. Eve ran to him in delight and leapt straight into his arms. How are your studies going? All finished. My teacher even said I learn quickly. Then in future, it won't only be me telling you stories. You'll soon be telling them to me. Eve found the very idea hard to believe. But on second thought, she grew excited. Then I'll work even harder. Her father was pleased. Then he produced a battered old book. This is a reward for how well you did today. Eve's small face filled with confusion. What lavish gift had she not received? And now her father was handing her a tattered book. She was even a little disdainful. Has father started fobbing me off? But one sentence from him made her eyes light up. This is your mother's book. It records how to work in harmony with the Great Spirit. Not only the child, even the two spirits crowded in to look. Your mother believed the guardians who came after would need it, so she made time to write it down. Eve hugged the book and would not let go. Though the crooked handwriting was enough to make anyone wince, even a guardian does not necessarily write beautifully. The two spirits leaned in over the book. We ought to study this as well. Her father patted her shoulder. See, the book even shows how to fight alongside the Great Spirit with a sword. This drawing is beautiful. He looked smug. Because I drew it. If your mother had drawn it, you wouldn't understand a thing. And I will teach you swordsmanship myself. Ask me anything you don't understand. Eve was overjoyed. At last she could learn the sword. Then another question. So what should I prepare? Study your mother's book well and listen to Shirley. That is enough. Eve was puzzled, but the doctor said I was completely healed. The Duke's face grew awkward. Listen to me. Neither she nor I would ever harm you. Don't worry, father, I'll be good. He hoisted her straight up in the air. I knew you were the best behaved of them all. Shall I put you down for your nap? Then the two of them went off cheerfully to the bedroom. As Eve was drifting off, the Duke said softly, Eve, someone who wants to meet you has arrived. Would you like to go and see? But Eve changed completely. Her hands tightened around him without her meaning to. He noticed at once. Don't be afraid, she knew your mother. Eve probed cautiously. She is the one who made your mother's clothes. Every garment your mother wore was sewn by Lady Viera's own hands. Eve was still afraid, but her father said he would go with her. The two spirits appeared at once. Don't be afraid, we'll go with you too. At last Eve set down her fear. In the drawing room, a lady of extraordinary dress and bearing was waiting. And no one would have guessed she was extremely nervous too. She could barely sit still. Will Rogers' daughter like me? She has suffered so much. Poor child. Until the door opened with a crisp sound. Lady Viera started. What she saw was little Eve clutching her father's coat. Hello, my lady. I am Lady Viera. I run a clothing house in the capital. You may call me Viera. Eve's eyes went wide. A longing for beautiful dresses seems to be every girl's nature. But Eve's next sentence frightened Viera half to death. She's dressed so splendidly. The people who drained my power were splendid like that too. Viera tore off her ornaments at once and even remembered to stamp on them a few times. I only dressed this way because I was meeting you, my lady. I'm not like this ordinarily. The woman's will to survive was on full display. Then the child began her second round of testing. Did you really make clothes for my mother? Of course, in fact, your mother once helped me. The Viera family had fallen on hard times and gotten into trouble. It was your mother who saved me. And I was captivated by that gallant figure at once. Viera warmed to her subject. From then on, I made your mother's clothes. Eve smiled awkwardly. A moment later, Viera knelt. My lady, from today, let me make your clothes. Eve did not follow. Viera was as enthusiastic as ever. Rest assured, my lady, I will make you more beautiful than anyone. Eve seemed moved by that sincerity. So I have to wear splendid clothes too? Not necessarily. I will make what suits you best. What suits you is what is most beautiful. Then I'm counting on you. Eve held out her small hand. Viera was deeply moved. And I hope you will look after me too, my lady. That night, Eve lay sprawled across her bed, then sniffed here and there. It was the scent of the wooden bathtub her father had prepared for her. Her whole body smelled of grass and wood. Just then, the Great Spirit appeared. Eve, were you happy today? Very happy. I have my mother's book. And I got to meet Lady Viera. Eve savored the day's good things as she spoke, and finally remembered to thank the two Great Spirits. With you two beside me, I feel very safe. But just then the Great Serpent lowered its head. It was silent a long while before asking in a solemn tone, Eve, do you not want to tell your family about your former life? Eve was startled. Isn't that forbidden? The two spirits nodded silently, because every world has its rules, and a change in the rules cannot be known to ordinary people. Eve was lost again. Then wasn't she standing outside the rules? You crossed over the rules, and you must remember, this can never be told to anyone. But the Great Spirit shifted. Keeping it bottled up, we fear it will be hard on you. Eve shook her small head. It's all right, I wasn't going to tell anyone anyway. Seeing a child so understanding it hurt to watch, the Great Spirit coiled itself. I'm sorry. Eve was puzzled. Why are you apologizing to me? It's all right, as long as you're beside me, everything is fine. Outside the estate, a handsome youth sat in a carriage. Elric, are you all right? He looked up. I'm fine. His mother scolded him mildly. You can barely walk, and you insisted on coming all this way. Elric smiled awkwardly. His mother sighed. Well, perhaps it was for the best. It was a chance to meet the girl. Her father had prepared a surprise party for his daughter. Not only had the entire estate been at work for 21 days, he had invited nobles of every kind to attend. And the little hostess of the party knew nothing at all, contentedly eating snacks in her father's lap. A biscuit in each hand, then a whole pitcher of juice downed in one go. Full to bursting, she let out a burp like a clap of thunder. Her siblings stared blankly. Whose child eats that much in one sitting? Their father seemed to hear them muttering. Cheerfully wiping his daughter's mouth, he paid them no mind. A good appetite is a blessing. Eve nodded along. Then she rang the bell again. So she had remembered dessert after all. But the maid was very strange today. She set down the cake and fled, and kept whispering to the person beside her. Eve asked between bites, Is everyone so busy today? Her father, afraid of giving it away, said, Today is cleaning day. The twins beside her were ready too. Eve, would you like to play dress-up? Eve's eyes went wide with confusion, but she did not refuse her brother's invitation. They all went to a magnificent dressing room. Viera and Shirley had been waiting a long time. All of these were made for you. Choose one you like. Eve was puzzled again. They're all mine, so why do I have to choose? Shirley laughed at the innocent question. What suits you is what's most beautiful. Eve nodded, half understanding. If attending to Eve seemed troublesome, her father was faring no better. A man of his age and blushing. This feels strange. I haven't worn clothes like this in years. Vera wanted to slap him from across the room. The twins gave the least trouble. They walked properly into their assigned places. They had just joined their father when a small voice calling father made everyone turn. And a second later, several of them went completely blank. The scene shifted to Eve waving happily. The twins' eyes turned to stars at once. They wanted to rush over and smother her. But their father was quicker. He lifted Eve up. You look so beautiful today. Eve was delighted, and she did not forget to praise her siblings and her father. Shall we go then? Eve was lost again. Go? Where are we going? Just then, the great doors swung open with a bang. The steward coughed twice, as if by chance, signaling that it was time. This way, please, Lady Eve. Beneath the magnificent hall, Eve looked around blankly, as though she had not grasped that all of it was for her. Congratulations on successfully summoning the Great Spirit. In an instant, Eve remembered the past. How many times had she been beaten for exactly this? You worthless thing! Try summoning the Great Spirit again if you dare. A girl and a spirit had endured one day after another that way. Eve's tears spilled over. She had never imagined she would be celebrated like this. Her father was the first to notice and thought he had done something wrong. But Eve threw her arms around him. Thank you! And my brother and sister and everyone who prepared all of this for me. It was a long while before Eve emerged from her father's arms. Her eyes were swollen from crying. The twins beamed so hard they could not close their mouths. But just then a voice broke the warmth. Count Ilant and his lady have arrived. From the moment the youth stepped through the door, Eve's eyes fixed on him and would not let go. A second later, she rushed straight to his side. Startled as he was, the youth did not forget his manners. My name is Elric. It is a joy to meet you, Lady Eve. I have long hoped to meet you. His parents were astonished. That was plainly a breach of protocol. I often hear them speak of you. And Eve, without a thought, simply reached out and touched him. A streak of red spread across Elric's cheeks. Eve simply kept looking at the youth, and Elric already had the words waiting in his chest. Lady Eve, you suffered greatly in that time. As he spoke, he took her hand and then bowed very deeply. Eve seemed moved by that concern, But her father and the twins could not watch any longer. That boy had been holding her hand far too long. A second later, clear teardrops fell onto her princess dress. Eve had been on the verge of tears without anyone noticing. Elric froze. She had only just finished crying, and here were even more tears. Even she did not know why. Her father sensed something and hurried over. By then, Eve had already burrowed into his arms. A child's face changes like the weather. A few soothing words, and Eve was herself again. Feeling better? Much better. I just cried so hard my head aches a little. Then, without a shred of ceremony, she leaned right onto Elric's shoulder. Why do I feel so comfortable next to you? Elric smiled, enjoying being leaned on. But he explained the reason. Because I am a spirit master. Then he raised a hand and a ring of water appeared in the air. A pity my body is so weak. This is all I can manage. Eve watched in amazement, but then something struck her as wrong. Why do you call me my lady? That isn't my name. Elric looked lost. The twins cut in. What our sister means is that she only likes being called by her name. The words our sister carried heavy emphasis. From the moment Eve had stuck herself to this white-haired boy, they had been thoroughly displeased. Then may I call you Eve? By now the twins were seething, but the other two simply carried on chatting. The more I look at that boy, the more he irritates me. The two came up with a plan at once. Eve, you're the host of this party. Everyone is waiting to see you dance. But Eve was anxious. Then can I dance with Elric? Fortunately, Elric was unwell, or there was no telling what other brilliant scheme the twins would have produced. So Eve danced happily, while Elric was straining to conceal something. Boy, I know what you're hiding. But since Eve likes you, I'll let it go for now. Elric bowed respectfully, but her father left him with a warning. Remember this. The day my daughter stops liking you, I will not let you off. Little did he know that day would never come in a lifetime. Then her father joined Eve's dance. Watching the two of them so close, Elric caught the mood and smiled, but a moment later he lowered his head and murmured, perhaps because something has changed. At last the ball ended. Eve let out a long yawn. She was about to fall asleep in her father's arms when she jolted awake. I'm not sleeping. I still want to play with Elric. Elric wanted to say something, but a certain ferocious stare made him swallow it. It's all right, his family will stay a few days. You can find him to play tomorrow. Eve waved goodbye reluctantly, then fell asleep in her father's arms. In the dead of night, the door to Eve's room eased open a crack. The stirring curtains could not hide the beauty of the one who stood there. You've come. The night sky has grown so bright. The voice came from the ring of light before him. Your face is so pale. Living in a place that cold and dark, can your body bear it? Elric coughed twice. I can still hold on. Thankfully, the source of the pain is gone. The light flared suddenly. Didn't you say you didn't regret what you did? Then why are you in such pain? Elric clenched his fist and said nothing. Because he had wanted to rescue her with his own hands. He wanted that smile to last forever. The light seemed to see his urgency. Worry does cloud the mind. Besides, she is very happy now. I know. The next morning, the child yawned and still remembered to ask where Elric was, which filled the twins with jealousy all over again. The Count noticed the mood, too. Elric has a fever. He's resting in his room. Elric is sick? He was perfectly fine yesterday. Then Eve wanted to go and see him. The twins locked eyes in perfect understanding, staring at Eve. Doesn't it strike you as strange? It certainly does. Even if the Great Spirit and a Spirit Master have an affinity, surely not to this degree. She used to be terrified of strangers. Their father was deep in thought as well. They were both children, and the Great Spirit was naturally drawn to Spirit Masters, but this close was too close. The one Eve is closest to can only be me. Watching his daughter fret over Elric even as she ate, an idea came to him. Elric was still wrestling with his illness. The boy was always frail. Perhaps it's the new surroundings. Shirley seized on the key point. You say he was ill before, my lady? Could you tell me the details? The Countess looked troubled, but so as not to delay his treatment, she told the whole story. It was when he was 7. Overnight, he began having trouble breathing, with a fever of 40 degrees. The symptoms were obvious, yet no one could diagnose the cause. Later, we guessed it was the spirit power inside him. We watched him fight between life and death for 2.5 years. But stranger still, a few days ago his condition suddenly improved. Just then Elric bolted upright. Eve scrambled to his bedside and murmured, "Please don't be sick." "He is out of danger now, he only needs to rest well." Eve caught the words "out of danger." "So Elric is better?" Then she patted his head herself. "Don't worry, Elric. I'm sure you'll be able to run again." A 7-year-old boy lay unconscious for 2.5 years. When he woke, the first thing he said was that he must find a girl he had never met. "Eve has been taken. I beg you, you must save her." At first, his parents thought it was delirium. But a careful investigation proved it was true. The Uncle Emperor did not believe it either when the Count reported it. But this was no time for hesitation. He gripped the Count's hand. "As Emperor, there is much I cannot do openly, so I ask you, I beg you to save that child." The Count was stunned. It was the first time he had seen the Emperor so frantic. Then the Count set out at once and under cover of night rescued Eve. And the truth came to light bit by bit. Elric said he had heard the voice of a spirit. The child born of the Guardian was suffering in that place. Hearing the whole story, the Duke was silent a long while. He had never imagined such a bond existed between the Great Spirit and the spirits. But the Count and his wife could not stay calm. The Duke had investigated for years and could receive the answer this composedly. "When do you intend to return to your lands?" "In 3 days, we would like to go to the capital and see His Majesty." "Then leave Elric with us." "What, of course, but wouldn't that be a burden?" Remembering how Eve treated Elric, her father was a little jealous, but Eve had finally found a playmate and he could not bear to separate them. At dusk, the Duke went to Elric's room. He had barely entered when he saw Eve with her head on the boy's lap. Before he could speak, Elric apologized first. "Forgive my rudeness. I should have paid my respects the moment I woke. But Eve is asleep on my lap, so it's all right." He came closer as he spoke. "She's sleeping soundly. Because she heard I would be staying here for a long while, and she was so happy she read me a fairy tale." Her father burned. Even I have never received that treatment. Elric's will to survive kicked in at once. "Eve read to me only for practice, my lord, so that she could read to you in her very best form. Your parents told me. You were the one who told them Eve had been taken and where she was held." Elric stiffened. Given how the man had treated him earlier, was he here to hold him accountable? Uneasy inside, he did not dare be careless. "That is true, my lord." But the Duke's sudden thanks left the youth at a complete loss. "It shames me to say it. I did not even know Roger had borne Eve. If you had not indirectly saved her, my daughter and I might have been parted by death. I truly am sorry. If my body had been a little stronger, I would certainly have gotten her out sooner." Her father gently refused the blame. "You are not the one at fault. Those animals are. Besides, Eve is very fond of you now." Then he lifted the little one carefully and gathered her into his arms. But as he left, he noticed something strange about the youth. He was trembling all over, as if he were about to weep. He let out a soft laugh, then walked back and gently patted the boy's head. By then, Elric's face was covered in tears. Perhaps because Eve liked him. Perhaps because the Duke had accepted him. Rest well and don't fall ill again. Who would have thought a man that cold could care for someone else, especially someone trying to steal his daughter away? Other people give gifts of gold and jewels. The Emperor gave a gift of an entire woman. Eve was thoroughly bewildered. She had assumed the woman was delivering the gift. "My lady, I am the gift." The woman even pointed deliberately at the red ribbon, her face full of excitement. "This proves I'm a gift." Her father had no words left. But Eve was thrilled. So a person can be a gift too. Though on reflection, Eve did, in fact, need a personal guard, and this woman clearly was not one to be trifled with. And the woman before them held an even more formidable title, commander of the Emperor's own guard. But more important still, she was Roger's, that is Eve's mother's, greatest admirer. "Rest assured, my lady, I will not let anyone harm you." Her father watched the two of them and smiled with relief. With someone like that guarding Eve, he could truly be at ease. And Eve, who not long ago had hidden from strangers, was already close beside her in the garden the very next day. Only the head housekeeper passing by had no words left, because what they held was 1,000-year ginseng the Duke had cultivated for more than a century. Eve understood none of it. "Is it expensive? Try a bite." And with that, the woman popped it straight into Eve's mouth. It's sweet. The two of them talked and pulled up another one. This herb doesn't just restore stamina, it revives your vigor. A bold idea came to Eve, and the two of them made their way to Elric's room. Elric flushed with embarrassment. Camille says this is good for the body. Eat all of it. The youth looked at a bed covered in ginseng and fell into thought. Her father looked at the stripped-bare plot and beamed. Only the old gardener suffered. A gift this precious is an honor, but I can't bring myself to eat it. Eve turned serious. No, if you don't eat it, you won't get better. And if you don't get better, you can't play with me. Just then, the twins burst through the door. I knew you'd be here. Today you're playing with us. Camille tactfully stepped aside. No, I want to play with Elrich. The twins looked struck by lightning. Dear sister, have you forgotten your brother and sister? Elric instantly turned into the picture of innocence. Why don't you play with them today? Until the sister played her trump card. Eve, shall I teach you swordsmanship today? Elric meant to say something more, but the brother cut him off. Since the young master is unwell, he should rest properly in his room. The sister smiled slyly, too. Exactly. What if he got hurt? With that, the group hurried out of the room. Meanwhile, the count and his wife had reached the palace. Have you seen Eve? How is she? Did my gift arrive? Of course. Camille put on the ribbon and went straight to Eve. Eve needs someone like that to protect her now. Which reminds me, you had met Roger and Eve. Why did you not tell us sooner? The Emperor let out a long breath. It was all because of that greedy old man. The Count stood frozen where he was.